People are baffled why you appointed Peter Mandelson in the first place to this job when, in essence, all the facts that we now know, we knew when you did the appointment. It's just that there's been some sort of lurid headline-grabbing language that we've seen since.
Peter Mandelson, before he was appointed, went through a due diligence process. That's the propriety and ethics team went through a process, and therefore I knew of his association with Epstein. But had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him. On top of that, what the email showed was he was not only questioning, but wanting to challenge the conviction of Epstein at the time. That, for me, went and cut across the whole approach that I've taken on violence against women and girls for many years, and this government's approach. On top of that, what emerged last week, on Wednesday evening late, were Peter Mandelson's responses to questions that have been put to him by government officials. I looked at those responses and I did not find them at all satisfying.
You said that details emerged Wednesday afternoon, but from what we can work out, details were furnished to bits of the Whitehall machinery, the Foreign Office and Downing Street, quite a bit ahead of you defending Peter Mandelson on Wednesday at Prime Minister's questions. And people are scratching their heads saying, why didn't you, the Prime Minister, make more effort to make sure you were briefed on this? Were people briefing you properly? Were they acting on your behalf? Were they acting slightly on Peter Mandelson's behalf, maybe?
It was only on Wednesday early evening that I knew the contents of the Bloomberg emails. It was only very late on Wednesday when Peter Mandelson replied to the questions that had been put to him by government officials. And it was on that basis that I took my decision that he should be removed. What I knew before PMQs was that there had been media inquiries. I didn't know the content of the Bloomberg emails. And I knew that questions had been put to Peter that he had not yet answered.
It's baffling to some people that bits of the Whitehall machinery did seem to know stuff. You didn't. I mean, some people are saying that maybe you weren't well served by your officials, but also maybe you were a bit incurious, what the Inland Revenue might call careless, to borrow another recent story.
Let me go with that, because this is the American ambassador. It is a week at that stage before the state visit, and my approach is always that if an allegation is made, it's whether it's Peter Mandelson or anybody else, it's important that that is put to the individual and their response is then considered, which is what I did.
You were drawn a bit towards the status quo, not least because of this state visit just around the corner. You admit that. It's slightly, and with the benefit of hindsight, you would have liked to have asked for these papers earlier, have them shown to you earlier, because you say not everybody had seen every email, but people at the top of the Foreign Office were in possession of some of the very material which you say was so unacceptable.
Well, look, in retrospect, it would have been better if I had been shown the details of the material before PMQs. Nonetheless,
the bits that were in Whitehall already.
Well, in retrospect,
why weren't you?
It would have been better if I had seen that.
You must have wondered
material.
this.
Well, the team were busy trying to get answers out of Peter Mandelson, which they hadn't got answers.
And you're sure they weren't just working, as it were, for Peter Mandelson, trying to protect his reputation a bit when they should have been protecting yours?
No. I've seen the questions that government officials put to Peter Mandelson. I've seen the response he gave to those.
You think he was obfuscating?
Well, what I'd just say about those questions, they were the right questions, in my view, and they were waiting for Peter to reply. So they didn't know what his reply was going to be any more than I did. But look, if you're asking me now, days on, would it have been better if more of this material had been brought expressly to my attention? Then yes, it would have been. But I'm satisfied the team were doing what they could to get the answers out of Peter Mandelson that they needed. And when
there's
those
no bad
answers,
faith in number 10 at the moment. Suggestions that
The right questions were asked. I then saw the answers to those questions, and I wasn't satisfied with them.
You accept it was a risk, a gamble, appointing him in the first place. He's got a huge track record of getting into trouble, and you knew that. It was a gamble.
If I knew then what I know now, I would never have appointed
Yeah, but you knew a lot.
At the time,
everybody knew a lot.
It had been through due diligence, and therefore I knew of the association, and he'd expressed regret in relation to that
And you knew
association.
he'd carried it on
Well,
way after the conviction.
What I did
We did know that. That was in the public realm.
The nature and the extent of the relationship, as I understood it then, compared with what was revealed in the Bloomberg emails, which none of us had seen, there's a gulf between the two situations, which is why I can say to you very clearly today, had I known that at the time, then there's no way I would have appointed him.
Are you angry?
I am angry. I don't particularly think anger helps here, but I feel let down. I feel that a process was gone through, and now information has come to light, which had I known it at the time, I wouldn't have appointed him. Had I known the nature and extent of the relationship, the fact that he was questioning and challenging the conviction. I've worked on violence against women and girls for many years. I know exactly how all this affects victims. That was a factor I didn't know anything about until Wednesday afternoon, that he was encouraging the challenging of the conviction. That goes to a different issue, to the nature and extent of the relationship. On top of that, that even on Wednesday evening, I wasn't getting through my officials from Peter Mandelson satisfactory answers. So,
are you angry?
Yes,
you're angry with Peter Mandelson.
I'm angry
then,
to have been put in that position.
and so you're angry with Peter Mandelson. You're angry with some elements of the system.
I'm not angry with elements of the system.
Are you angry with yourself at all?
Look, in retrospect, of course, I think it would have been better if the detailed allegations that have been made in relation to Peter had been put in front of me before PMQs. But the team were trying to get answers out of him in relation to those questions, and that was the right thing to do. I've seen the questions. There's nothing. The questions that were being asked of Peter were the right questions.
This comes as you try to reset the government, and as you know, that probably contributes to your anger, because you had the reshuffle. You hoped to be talking about delivery the last 2 weeks. You've been talking about everything but, really, and that reset itself puzzles people, because you say you now have the right people in the right jobs. It doesn't speak very well of the preceding months, the first year plus of you in office. If you've had to move them all around, something wasn't working, whether it was in the Home Office or one of the other departments you've hollowed out and changed.
No, that would be an argument for never having a reshuffle.
This is a giant reshuffle for a new government.
I said a big thank you to all those people who moved on from their post for what they've done, the hard work that they've done in the first 14 months of this government. We do go on to a new phase. We were fixing the foundations in the first phase. We're now moving on to the delivery and showing what a difference a Labour government makes. Obviously, the resignation of Angela Rayner meant that I had to make some changes, and I thought it was therefore right to make the wider changes I did. But I want to be clear, in relation to those that served and no longer serving, I have said thank you to them, and I say thank you again. But it is important I have the right people as we go forward to this next stage of government.
You've been very clear about the threat of reform. You want to do anything to stop the threat of reform in this country. Would that include, if the party felt it was necessary, stepping aside as leader?
No, because I'm absolutely clear what the task is in front of me. We have a crossroads, really, in terms of the future of this country. We go forward with Labour for national renewal, a patriotic call about this country and taking this country forward, true patriotism. Or we have division and decline under reform, and they are and a country in which people feel that they're not part of the country that we are, that is divisive. You saw this on Saturday. Look what happened on our streets on Saturday. That wasn't just very bad behaviour in central London, although it was that, assaulting police officers and the like. That's plastic patriotism. It sent a shiver through so many of our communities who now feel more scared than they did before. I understand that. I'm absolutely determined to lead in this fight of our times between renewal, the patriotic cause of the Labour Party, and the division and toxic chaos and decline that would come under reform.
You've been announcing just in the next door room new investment on nuclear energy. Do you ever feel there you are doing all these, as you would see it, long-term projects for growth, and there's reform, as you would see it, doing short-term gimmicky instant gratification announcements, and you're kind of sometimes, do you feel checkmated a bit?
Well, it's important that we do the medium and long-term decision-making, because my strong belief is over the last 15 years under the last government, they didn't do the medium and long-term decisions, and therefore we didn't have a steady country. So we must operate in that way. But yes, are we up against fake solutions, and they are fake solutions from reform that that won't work, haven't been costed, can't be implemented, the easy answers that will deliver nothing. Yes, we are up against that, and that's why it's very important for me and for you and everybody else to hold what reforms say up to the light, because they are fake solutions, and they're fake. To peddle fake solutions to a worried public is about as unpatriotic as you can get.
You'll be announcing later today, by the time we're on air, it will have been announced that RAF jets may be active in Polish airspace. People will be worried, maybe want reassurance that there won't be direct involvement, the RAF shooting down Russian jets, potentially, or unmanned drones. What can you say to reassure people about this deployment?
Well, you'll have seen the levels of concern last week when Russian drones carried out an attack in Poland, unprecedented. As a result of that, NATO leaders have discussed what the appropriate response should be. I spoke to both the President and the Prime Minister of Poland last week to discuss this, and today we've announced that we will deploy further air defence cover in Poland. That is the right thing to do. The wrong thing to do would be to ignore this increased aggression from Putin, from Russia, because this wasn't a one-off. You saw only a few weeks ago the bombing of the British Council in Kyiv, the attacking of the EU embassy, and the direct hits on the Council of Ministers in Kyiv itself, central government in Kyiv. So it's absolutely clear that the Russians are upping the aggression, and it's very important that with our NATO allies that we respond appropriately to that, and that's what we're doing today.
Prime Minister, thank you for your time.
Thank you.